Hi, my name is Chancel Sieber. I'm with Click Dog Training. I'm going to be going over some orientation rules, so this video will be required before you take the puppy or manners class with me. This is my little helper, Reaper. He is my dog who actually needs some refreshing on skills, so he'll be helping a little bit. But a couple main things to go over, especially for the manners class, is it will be some adult dogs. Not all of them may get along with other dogs, so I will ask that when you guys come to class that you don't actually let them greet. For manners class, there won't be any off-leash playtime. And like I mentioned, there are some dogs that just don't get along with other dogs. There are some dogs that have leash reactivity, meaning that they don't get along with other dogs while they're on leash. So I will ask that you keep them separate. And as far as puppies go, we're going to keep them separate in the beginning. They will have some playtime, but we don't want to get them used to playing on leash. So we want them to come and work first for a little bit, and then we'll allow them to have some off-leash playtime. And it goes as the same too. We might have some Shire puppies. Can you lay down, please? We might have some Shire puppies, and then we might have some more exuberant puppies, so we don't want the Shire puppy feeling scared. So that's really important. Some other rules. It is force-free positive training. That doesn't mean that there's not necessarily punishment involved in it, but there are no tools allowed, such as choke chains, prong collars, shock collars, obviously. So I do ask that you bring a regular flat buckle collar. 4 to 6 foot leash is fine. If your dog's wearing a harness, that's also totally fine. We don't hit the dogs. We don't yell at the dogs. No physical manipulation, so no putting them into position. We'll go over how to get them to do that and want to do that and enjoy doing that. So those are some big main rules. Jerking on the leash also falls into that. We don't want to use it as a steering wheel. It's there to make sure that our dogs are safe and comfortable. One thing that I will be including in an email once you guys sign up is some stuff about dog body language. So there's something called calming signals that dogs give off, and that's when they are feeling stressed. And low-level stress comes with training, so that's no big deal. You'll see some of that stuff in training. You'll also see it when dogs meet other dogs, so if you have an older dog and you visited a dog park, you might see some of these things. Some really common ones are licking their lips, not after they've gotten a treat, but kind of a long lick along their mouth. A shake off, like they just got out of the bath and they're trying to wring the water out of themselves. That's another one. You see that a lot. Reaper, my border collie, actually isn't super people social, so he kind of has his group of people that he likes, but if he goes up to someone, they pet him, he walks away and he shakes off. That's kind of his way to reset and just kind of sigh of relief that it went okay. Same thing when dogs greet each other. They'll go up and there's a bit of social anxiety that's involved in that. So when they walk away, they'll shake off. So those are just some examples. Another one that you see more often in small dogs is a paw lift. That's kind of, to me, I think of it as kind of a white flag. Like, I'm not here to hurt you. I don't want to get hurt. Some other ones are avoiding eye contact, a head turn, and the ones that are most common during training and when you're trying to do stuff with your dogs are actually called displacement behaviors. That's when people say their dog is stubborn or they're not listening to them. So if you dropped one treat but they're smelling on the ground for minutes and minutes looking for something, that can be a displacement behavior. So that can be confusion with training where you're not telling them exactly what you want them to do, so they're a little lost and they kind of check out, so to speak. I kind of call it la la land. Another thing is if dogs are really, really stressed, they won't do known obedience cues. So if your dog's fearful of other dogs and you're next to a dog park and you're asking them to sit over and over again and they won't respond, it's not because they're stubborn, it's because they're too scared to sit in that position next to those dogs. And the same could go for for people. So you want to be really mindful of stuff. We want to try to keep the class as low stress as possible. The location that it will be, there might be some passerbys, there's going to be some buses, there's going to be some loud cars. So we don't want to overwhelm them, asking them to do tons of stuff. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna keep it as low stress as possible. And the main part for the class is for you guys and for me to make sure that you're picking up on the skills and that you can go home and practice them throughout the week. So that's a big part of it. Also, clicker training. There's a lot of myths about clicker training. Obviously, I'm big on it. I did go to Karen Pryor Academy, and Karen Pryor is a scientist who started with clicker training, and she started with dolphins. So they use markers or clickers to train all sorts of animals. They train dolphins, they train bears and tigers at the zoo, and they train them to actually put their arms up so that they can do blood draws. I had a friend who traveled to Hawaii, and they were training stingrays and sturgeons to swim through hula hoops. They would use a laser pointer as a marker. So essentially what the clicker does is it pinpoints the exact behavior that we want the dog to repeat. So it makes it much easier for them to repeat the behavior. So it makes it easier for them to be successful. So that's the main point of it. If we were teaching your puppies to sit, we would click the second that their little butt hits the ground. If we were teaching them to look at us, we would click the second that they make that eye contact. If we weren't to click it, and we were just to give them the treat, by the time that we're giving them the food, they would actually probably be looking at our treat hand. So it bridges that time between the desired behavior, looking at us, and the time that they actually get the food. So then their brains are going, okay, that's exactly what she's paying me for. They do learn about 60% quicker when you do use a clicker or a marker word. With all that being said, clicker is a mechanical skill, so it can be a little awkward to use at first, and it can be awkward in certain behaviors like loose leash walking when you have a lot of things to carry. So I'm understanding of that. I certainly don't force people to use a clicker, but I do encourage it. The other big thing is it's only used in the introduction stages of learning. So once your dog learns a behavior, you can actually fade out of using the clicker. There's no harm in continuing to use it, but you don't actually need to keep using it. So that's good to know. And when you first start with a clicker, it doesn't mean anything. You're just going to charge the clicker. So you're going to pair it with food. And it's a really easy game to play. The dogs pick up on it very, very easily. So what that would look like, can you sit? Is where, and I will be giving you guys clickers in class, is where you just click first and then give them food. And I would say 10 to 20 treats, or 10 to 20 clicks and treats max. Your dog is going to pick up on what it means. So he's offering me eye contact, but and he obviously knows what it means, but what you'll start to see is if you click and you wait a second, they're going to start looking at you expecting the food. So this is something that if you haven't done prior to class, that we will do in class, and we'll, we're going to do lots of exercises where they're going to pick up on it very, very quickly. He's very ready to work, but just click and treat. So it goes back to the Pavlov theory, where he rings a bell and pairs it with a food, and the dog starts to salivate when it hears the bell because it knows that food is coming. If you are absolutely against using a clicker, or for some reason it's just not easy for you, you can also use a marker word. So Reaper also has a marker word, which is yes, and I give him a treat. Yes, and I give him a treat. And it has the same sort of effect, and you would use it in the same exact way. The only difference is the clicker has a nice distinct sound, whereas we're talking all the time, so our voices can kind of become white noise. So that's why I'm big on the clicker. It's definitely something you could practice with. There's some exercises that maybe you use it in, and some exercises you don't. There are some rules that go along with it. Every time you click, you owe your dog food. So that is your contract with the dog. If you click, you owe them food. Even if you click accidentally, which will happen, I do it sometimes, and it happens to all of us. So that's very important. If you're using a yes, a verbal, then you'll just use that with other things. So other things that are rewarding to your dog aside from food can be, like for instance, Reaper's big reinforcer that he likes more than food is playing tug. Water is probably number one on it. It can be the pool, the ocean. Sometimes it can be a water bowl. Whereas most dogs don't like to be squirt with a squirt bottle or a squirt gun. He absolutely loves it and thinks it's a very fun game. So if you were to write down a list of things that your dog really, really likes, even smelling bushes for terriers. Can you go to your bed? Down. Then you can use yes, and you can throw a tennis ball, yes, and let him play tug. So the clicker will be paired with food. Your other markers will be paired with other things. If that's confusing, we'll go over it more in class. But for now, you know, we'll plan on using the clicker, and then if anyone in class has any concerns as to why we use it, or if they don't want to use it, we can definitely go over that. The other main question that I get is, if there's multiple clickers going on in class, how does my dog know which one is for them? So they will be able to distinguish which click is for them and which is closer to them over time. So you don't have to worry about that. I've taught a lot of classes with lots of dogs, and that's never been an issue. There is occasionally dogs that are afraid of the clicker, so I do recommend an iClick, which looks like this. They do make box clickers that are a little bit louder, so these are softer. If you buy one before class, or if you already have one and your dog's afraid of the box clicker, you might want to try this. You could also put it in your pocket to click it first and make sure, but definitely if those dogs are afraid of the sound, then we would use a verbal marker like yes or nice or yep or whatever it is that you like. So it is different than praise. You can praise your dogs all that you want. This is specifically to tell the dog, that is what I wanted you to do. To look at me, to sit, to lay down, to walk nicely next to me. So that's a little bit about the clicker. Clicker and treats both do get faded out, but that is, of course, once the behavior is actually a learned behavior, meaning that they can do it in several different locations, they can do it on different surfaces, grass, gravel, sidewalk, with distractions, all that sort of stuff. So that's when you can start fading out of it. And like I mentioned earlier, there's no harm in continuing to use it. Reaper does know sitting down, and sometimes I still click him for that, just depending on what it is that we're working on. So that's some information about class. So the big rules are, please don't come into class and let your dogs run up to other dogs. That does also reinforce impolite greetings. And some dogs don't like that. It's just too intrusive. No punishment, no prong collars, choke chain, shock collars, regular collar, regular harness, and a regular leash. Whatever you have is fine. Just no yelling, no smacking, anything like that. Also, if you guys could bring a towel, I will have some extras in case you forget them, but if you would bring a towel, we are going to teach them to settle down onto a mat. So other than some of their favorite treats, a towel, their regular walking gear that you have is plenty to bring. I do like to use, a lot of the times I use nitrate-free hot dogs or turkey hot dogs. Right now I'm using something from Dexter's Deli. It's called Happy Howie's, and it's kind of a semi-moist dog treat, so you can kind of see, I can break them up as small as I want to. So what you do want is something that you can break up really small so that your dog doesn't get full, and obviously so that they don't get fat. If you're worried about weight, when you have training days, you can just subtract a little bit from their food later that day. If you have dogs that are not super food motivated, I would recommend either skipping their breakfast before class or feeding them a quarter to half. And then if you don't feel like they've gotten enough, then you can feed them the rest when you get home. But really small pieces. Once they get full, they usually stop working for us. The classes will be an hour. They do usually start to get a little bit fried and kind of stop around 45 minutes. Don't worry, that's pretty normal when you guys train at home. You won't do as long of sessions, and we'll go over that in class. So if you guys have any questions after you've watched this video, you guys can feel free to email me with any questions that you have, and then I will send you a waiver, as I mentioned. So I hope to see you guys soon in class. Thank you.